Deadline is approaching and we're on your side with the help you need this tax season. From now until 7 o'clock, we are teaming up with Carr, Riggs & Ingram for another On Your Side On Call segment. And so I'm joined now with Hardy Foreman. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So this is a busy time for you guys.
It certainly is. We'll be going back to work after this.
Okay. And so a couple of questions that, that might be helpful for some of our viewers. At what point does one need to reach out to a CPA versus maybe relying on filing taxes themselves?
Well, I always advise people when they ask me this question, when should I reach out to a CPA? If you're starting your own business, so if you're starting your own small business, you definitely need to reach out to a CPA. But with the complexities of the tax code nowadays, it's never really a bad idea to consult with a CPA just because tax laws are changing daily.
Yeah.
And particularly whenever you have a new presidential administration, which we have this year, the tax laws will change substantially. So if there's anything at all unique about your income tax filing, I would certainly advise you reach out to a CPA, but definitely if you're starting a small business.
Absolutely. And we've got our first caller over there, so that's awesome.
That's a good sign.
Yes, and if I hired a CPA to handle my taxes, are those fees tax exempt?
It is not for an individual.
Okay.
But getting back to our prior question, if you do have a small business, those professional fees are always deductible to businesses. So if you have a small business, yet another reason why you should reach out to a CPA. Our fees are always 100% deductible in the case of a small business owner. So why not hire a CPA? They're tax deductible. And, most people, we're trained to know the tax laws and we have to keep up with them daily.
Right.
So, for an average person, they don't want to spend hours studying the tax code every year just to file their tax return.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, just, all these questions that people may have, then, talk to a CPA. So again, the number to call is 318-861-KTBS. Call anytime from now until 7. And we've already have our first caller, so get to calling and we'll be right back.
Well, the tax deadline is fast approaching. We're on your side with the help you need this tax season. Until 7 o'clock, we're teaming up with Carr, Riggs & Ingram for another On Your Side On Call. If you have any questions, we have representatives answering the phones right now. They're busy as we speak. That number, 318-861-KTBS. We'll be right back. Well, we're on your side in many ways, including help with taxes. That deadline is approaching, and until 7 tonight, we're teaming up with Carr, Riggs & Ingram for another On Your Side On Call. Let's bring in Jed Rimmer now, tax partner with Carr, Riggs & Ingram, here with us today to answer some more questions. And, it seems like as you get later in life, the taxes maybe get a little more complicated, and one that no one wants to talk about or deal with, but it is a real issue when a spouse passes away. And what kind of tax rate burden is left for the other spouse when it comes to property taxes, stocks, bonds, banking, and all that stuff?
Well, regarding assets, Louisiana and Texas are both community property states. So what that means is that in terms of taxes and the death of a spouse, is that the surviving spouse gets a step up in basis to fair market value for those assets, not only for the assets that she owned, that the spouse would own separately, the surviving spouse, but the assets that the deceased spouse would own as well. So in Texas and Louisiana, that's the case. In Arkansas, it's a common law state, so that's not the case. The surviving spouse would only get the step up in basis for the deceased spouse.
A little lighter topic, but very important. If you do own a small business, how do you separate those business expenses from personal?
Well, the number one thing to do is to open a bank account, a separate business bank account. Form an LLC or another form of business entity, open up a bank account, and that's the best way to separate business and personal expenses. And then don't use the business account for personal expenses and try not to do vice versa.
All right, well, we do appreciate you taking some time. You guys are going to be here all night until 7. 318-861-KTBS. Call anytime until 7.
The tax deadline is fast approaching, and we're on your side with the help you need this tax season. From now until 7 o'clock, we are teaming up with Carr, Riggs & Ingram for another On Your Side On Call segment. And thanks for joining us, Hardy Foreman.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So we've got some callers. Awesome. Yeah, give us a call. That number is right there on your screen. So question for you, Hardy, though, is if I'm a contract worker and paid as 1099 employee, what steps do I need to take to help decrease my tax liability?
Well, anytime we have a client that receives 1099 compensation, we always recommend that they formalize it by setting up a small business. Here in Louisiana, we typically recommend a LLC. In Texas, if it's a professional, it's a PLLC, but Texas also has the LLCs,
Okay.
as well as Arkansas. So we recommend form an LLC, incorporate your small business, open a small business checking account. Because that small business checking account will help you in substantiating your deductions against that 1099 income.
Okay, and so going off that, with starting that LLC, what are some of those things that you can write off on your taxes?
Well, you know, when you form your own small business, you know, you organize with an LLC or a PLLC in Texas, you can pretty much write off any expenses that's incurred earning that income.
Okay.
So more times than not, you can write off your vehicle expenses, which you know entails maintenance on the vehicle, fuel for the vehicle, insurance on the vehicle, your cellular phone service, your home internet service. You know, when you take the time and do it right, get with your CPA and form a small business LLC, pay for all this out of your business checking account, write that off your taxes so you're not stuck paying taxes on the entirety of the 1099 income.
Yeah, and this is all really good tips, and it kind of reinforces the need of, you know, a CPA to ask these questions.
That's how we feel.
Okay. Yes, busy season for you guys. But again, if you have a question, give us a call. That number is 318-861.
Well, that tax deadline is almost here. We're on your side to help this tax season. We're teaming up with Carr, Riggs, and Ingram until 7 o'clock for another On Your Side on Call. Jed Rimmer is here again with us in our 4 o'clock hour. And Jed, we have a lot of questions written in here, but I think interesting, as we've had the phones ringing here this afternoon, what are some of the most common tax questions you get from people that reach out?
I mean, a lot of the questions are, you know, around, you know, I donate stuff to Goodwill.
Right.
You know, can I write that off? And you know, non-cash charitable deductions is one of the very common questions I get. Another one is, should I file as married filing joint or married filing separate?
Right.
And you know, what I tell clients or people that ask that question is, you know, it's almost always, if you're married, it's almost always more beneficial to file as married filing joint.
Right. And on that deduction topic as well, what do you advise people to do there?
For the
charitable, yes.
Oh, so yeah, just make sure you get a receipt from Goodwill so that you can substantiate those donations to Goodwill, and you know, that's the main thing.
And I know when I speak to you guys, and I've talked to Hardy in the past, I think y'all serve as a great reminder that it is time to get that thing done. And if you haven't filed your taxes yet, why is it so vital to go ahead and get that out of the way?
Well, number one, if you owe anything, the deadline is April 15th. There's no extension to pay.
Right.
And so if you owe, you want to avoid penalties by paying. So in order to know if you owe, you need to at least work it up, and so it's vital to get your information into your CPA so that you know you'll know what the damage is. And
if our viewers haven't done that yet, you guys are the perfect people to call, correct?
Absolutely. Give us a call.
All right, and you can call them right now, 318-861-KTBS for some free advice until 7 o'clock. We'll be right back.